Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us on our food waste prevention webinar for the dairy sector this morning. Please, can you just type a quick note in the Q&A box or the chat box just to let me know that you can hear me, please. Just to let you know that this webinar is being recorded and will be available on the RAP website shortly to share with your colleagues. We will send you a link to the session with any follow-up materials following this. My name's Helen Hawley and I will be hosting this session, which will last up to an hour. To help the webinar run smoothly, please can you minimise any background noise by turning your line to mute and also turning off the camera on your computer. Please ask any questions during the session through the question and answer box, which is on the right-hand side of the screen, and we will answer any of these during the 15-minute Q&A session, which will follow the presentation. You can also make the slides clearer on your laptop by using the double-ended arrow at the top of the screen. Our speakers today are Sue, Riley and Philippa Hoy, both from RAP, plus we have a guest speaker, Patrick Leane from FareShare. Sue's main focus is consumer food waste prevention, and she comes from a food industry background. She's worked in product, process and packaging development, plus technical and quality roles in food manufacturing, and was general manager of an advisory service before joining RAP. Philippa focuses on supply chain food waste prevention and has a background in environmental consultancy and promoting resource efficiency, particularly within the food and drink sector. On the right-hand side of this slide, you'll see an overview of this webinar. In the next hour, we will provide you with information on food waste, discuss how you and your business can help tackle it, and highlight the guidance that is available. Plus, as mentioned previously, there'll be an opportunity for questions and answers during the last 15 minutes. I will now hand over to Sue, who will kick off with our objectives for this session and some background information.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you to Helen for the introductions. Dairy is a priority category for us, so we have three key objectives for this webinar today: to raise awareness of the issue of food waste, to highlight the help and guidance available, and also to encourage those working within the category to take action. We quite often discuss supply chain and consumer food waste prevention separately, and so we are really keen to bring these together and talk to you about everything your business can do to tackle food waste, all under one banner. The Court Hold commitment is a responsibility deal to improve resource efficiency and reduce the carbon impact of the UK grocery retail sector. RAP is responsible for the agreement, which has three targets, and these are packaging optimisation, supply chain waste prevention, and household food waste prevention. Phase 3 of the agreement will be coming to an end in December 2015, and of course our primary objective is achieving our targets, although we do recognise that we have limited time now and that some actions that can be taken are longer term. So what we also wanted to do was to use this session as a way of helping you to gear up for Court Hold 2025, which is the next voluntary agreement, and if possible to help you and your businesses to reap some of the benefits, which can be both financial and environmental, sooner rather than later. And you'll see that there's a link at the bottom of this slide to take you to more information on the Court Hold commitment and Court Hold 2025. So just briefly before I hand over to Philippa, I wanted to mention our Dairy Digest. And this is a short interactive document with pop-up boxes, click-throughs and links, even to the specific page in a report that's relevant to you. And that will be downloadable from our website next week and will be regularly updated with our latest information. It's part of a series of 9 digests covering specific audiences and categories, which bring together all of the RAP information that you might need to tackle food waste in a user-friendly format, so hopefully a really useful resource. So I'm just going to hand over to Philippa now.
Thanks, Sue. Okay, I'm going to start with a quick quiz question. Just for fun, just to set the scene, how much waste do you think comes from food retailing, wholesaling and manufacturing businesses in the UK each year? You've got your 3 choices there, and the answer is 6.5 million tonnes. So well done those who've got that right. That probably means you've been reading some RAP reports, so that's good news. from the report that this figure comes from is this diagram, which just shows you how this waste breaks down across the sector. You can see that the vast majority is in the manufacturing side at 4.9 million tonnes. And then up at the top of the screen, you can see there's 1.6 million tonnes at retail and wholesale waste. Although we do recognise completely that the decisions made at the retail end often have a very big impact on waste at the manufacturing side. Now, together across both manufacturing and retail, food waste is 4.3 million tonnes a year and packaging 1.7 million tonnes a year. And this waste is valued at £6.7 million a year. So there's a huge cost-saving opportunity for the industry. So what's the best way to tackle this waste? So based on the extensive research that RAP's done in the sector, we've developed this approach, our 555 approach to waste reduction, to help companies take the most effective actions on waste. Now this approach covers 5 key actions that we want companies to take that are really crucial. Then we've identified 5 areas that we found can give the biggest bang for buck when reducing waste. And then we have a simple 5-stage process that can help you tackle waste hotspots. And I'm briefly going to talk through all of those and just give you a few examples along the way. So firstly, we're looking at the crucial actions companies need to take to make sure they're on top of waste. The first action is to measure the waste and to understand what waste is occurring in your business, which so many companies still really don't have a handle on, and therefore they're not able to target it effectively. The second thing is to really understand how much that waste is actually costing you. And so many companies just look at disposal costs, but there's so much more value that's gone into waste than just those costs. There's ingredients, there's packaging, energy, water, labour. When you consider all of these, the business case for taking action can really change. So you'll see on screen, this is RAP's suggested calculation for the true cost of waste. And in the UK, if you use this calculation, waste is shown to be between 4 and 5% of company turnover, but it can be as high as 10%. So just imagine what an extra 1% of turnover would mean for your business if you could reduce the waste to that level. And then to achieve that, you need to set reduction targets. There's so many times that I've seen tolerance levels set, and as long as waste doesn't exceed those, it's just considered everything's tickety-boo and we'll just carry on as is. So you've really got to have a progressive reduction targets and not tolerate tolerance levels. Once you've mapped your waste and you know how much it's costing you, you can see where the real hotspots are, possibly ones that aren't so immediately apparent. And these are the ones that you should take action on first. And I'll come to the guidance that we have to help you do that shortly. The 5th key action is to embed a culture of waste minimisation. Now, senior management need to lead the charge here. And it's very important that a company has a waste reduction policy. And then it's important to engage employees because they really are the powerhouse, the eyes and ears, and the ones that are going to implement any waste reduction activities. So we appreciate that this can be quite tough. So we have been, over the last few months, developing a series of tools to help companies do this. And this is called Your Workplace Without Waste. Now, this is an employee engagement program focused on waste reduction in the workplace. It's designed to be used by all food and drink companies, whether that's factories, depots, stores. And the reason that the materials work for all these different elements is because it's about changing behaviour. It's about changing how people think and act, rather than telling them what to do about waste. The program's ongoing, and this is definitely something we're going to be adding to the program in the future. So how does it work? There's a series of 5 short interactive sessions that will have the aim of achieving these impacts, that the staff can understand the waste issue, and we can advise in techniques to help recognise, measure, and as I've mentioned, to cost that waste. Then the staff are encouraged to come up with their own solutions to the problems that they've identified, and then that should help them take ownership of the solutions to drive that waste out of the workplace. The training's provided via a cascade process, so we provide train-the-trainer guidance for somebody in a company to then train up a team of champions who can then run the individual activities with staff. We've designed it to be very flexible, because we know how busy everybody is and how difficult it can be to take time out for training. So the activities are split up into the 5 sections, and they're only about 20 to 30 minutes each. They can all be run together, which is ideal, but if that's not possible, they can be split up over several days or weeks, whatever's best for the company. We've also designed it, it's a pick and mix as well. You can use the whole program, or you can pick out the bits that you might like and incorporate those into perhaps an employee engagement program on sustainability that you've already got going, or induction training, something like that. So what's included? Firstly, the toolkit element, it has 3 parts. We help you to kickstart a waste reduction campaign with a guide giving advice about how to do that, including about communications, everything to make it a real success. And then we've got the step-by-step notes to help in the training up of the champions who'll actually deliver these activities to staff. And that includes how to run activities, follow up, and the talking points around what we're trying to get people to learn. And the third element is a guide to maintaining the momentum. It's back to this idea of embedding a culture of a waste reduction campaign and making sure it's not just a one-hit wonder. We've even got everything you need for an ideas competition, a sort of Dragon's Den style competition that we've called Itching to Pitch. And we've produced everything you need for that, from posters to advertise it to entry forms and judging forms. Then we come on to the training resources themselves. So first of all, we've got a self-study guide for managers that gives you a concise overview of the importance of waste reduction, the benefits, the business case, and the key practical advice, the sort of thing that I'm going through very quickly this morning, as well as how to make sure that any employee engagement campaign is a success. And then the second element are the actual activities to be run with staff that I mentioned. But of course, we hope the managers will join in those as well. And it's all designed to be quite fun and light-hearted so that people enjoy the activities and therefore hopefully remember more and are encouraged to take action. All the materials should be published early this month with posters and a screensaver coming a bit later. To find out more, we've got a short 2-page overview that we can send, and I recorded a 30-minute webinar last week that where I walked through the program in a bit more detail if you'd like to listen to that. So that's the 5 key actions we recommend to businesses. Now I'm going to move on to the 5 areas that RAT research has shown have the biggest potential for waste and cost reduction. And the first of these is improving systems and processes. These are all the sorts of things like range rationalization, improving forecasting, trying to extend product life, running promotions so that they don't increase waste. And these are all areas where small tweaks can make really big gains. And we've got guidance in many of these areas to help that you'll be able to find in the Dairy Digest. The second key area is packaging, but not primary packaging. There's been so much achieved there already. We don't see there's really big opportunities to take that down much further. However, there are still some really good quick wins on reducing secondary and tertiary packaging. Now, similarly to the Dairy Digest, document we've prepared. We've also put one together on packaging, so you can get all the information you need to send to your packaging teams so they can access all of that good stuff. Redistribution of surplus food is another key area. Now, the amounts being redistributed, so that's being sent for human consumption, either through a secondary market or a charity route, or to animal feed, have increased significantly over the last few years, with retailers particularly taking action on this, but there's still a huge potential to improve this. It's been recognised that there are lots of barriers preventing more being redistributed, so action is being taken to help. The key things that's been agreed are needed to help improve the amount of redistribution that's taking place is having a common language and standardised practices to make operations more efficient. Now, WRAP's been developing a standard partnership model for food redistribution with support from our Quartile 3 industry working group. And the purpose of this model is that it gives a structured and efficient approach to creating food redistribution partnerships. So looking at the needs of the people with the surplus food and those who are receiving it and putting it to good use. So it takes account of the needs of both ways of working on both sides of the equation, and it aims to lead to a more structured approach in identifying food surpluses and getting them redistributed efficiently. Now, this model is neutral. It's designed to work with various channels, whether that's charity or commercial, a national interface network or a local church, something like that. And there's no judgment on which is the best route. So we'll be publicising this when it's complete, and we hope that it's something that you'll use in conjunction with your redistribution partners. And we're going to be hearing more about this from our guest speaker in a few minutes. So if it can't go to humans, the next best place is to send it for animals. And obviously the decision whether surpluses are redistributed to humans or animals will be based on what's best for an individual business. But WRAP is carrying out research to make the options and the business case clearer regarding animal feed, as there are often really significant cost savings over sending surpluses to anaerobic digestion or landfill. Now, this guidance is designed to be a really simple one-stop shop guide, written in plain English, pulling together some disparate sources of support that there's out there at the moment, all into one place. And we're also going to give some case studies which will demonstrate the commercial benefits and how any safety issues can be effectively dealt with. And there's one of particular interest for the dairy industry that we're going to be publishing shortly, and that's from Arla and how they've made huge advances in the amount of surpluses that they send for animal feed. So what you can see on the screen is the process that Arla and their partners have established to find a safe way to get waste product sent for animal feed. So previously to this, Arla had been separating packed milk and dairy from its packaging and then sending the liquid element to AD. And the surpluses were the sort of things from problems like labelling issues or other issues in production. So since 2014, Arla have been working with their partners to find an effective way that this could be sent to animal feed. And they've achieved this now, and it's been audited and approved by competent authorities. So at their largest UK factory, the pig farmer comes along 2 to 4 times a week, separates the food from the packaging, because they're now able to invest in sort of equipment that you need to do this. And 100% of their food surplus from this factory is now going to animal feed. And this is having really significant cost reductions. And they're on track for about 1,000 tonnes a year to have been sent to animal feed and diverted from a waste management route. And they're going to be rolling this out to other sites. So it's a great example of what can be achieved by working together to solve a problem. the fourth sort of element of finding the biggest waste reductions is to use a lean or continuous improvement approach. Now, your company might have something in place already, or RAP has tools that we can help with, and I'll come to that, talk a bit more about that in a moment. And the fifth key area is collaboration. This is really where the biggest benefits can be found. I've just mentioned the Arla case study, illustrated how coming together with partners, they were able to find a solution to a specific problem. I just want to highlight another case study where partners came together to find out what the problems were, as they possibly weren't already known, right along the supply chain, and collaboratively came up with solutions. So this was a project looking at the end-to-end of a sandwich supply chain. Convenience food producer Greencore initiated this together with their Sainsbury's customer, and they followed two of their top-selling sandwiches end-to-end, and then they also got their suppliers involved as well. And they did all the stuff that I've been talking about, mapping the waste, targeting the hotspots, and then seeking and coming up with and trialling solutions. And this has led to some impressive results, with 1,700 tonnes of waste currently being targeted through 17 projects across all the different partners. Now, this is impressive because this was a very lean supply chain in the first place because of the short shelf life nature of the product. So it just shows you should never rest on your laurels, and there's always more waste to find. It's also resulted in improving the relationships between the members of the supply chain, as well as improved knowledge and awareness of staff, coming back to that whole employee engagement thing again. So this process is now being rolled out to other sites and other lines by both Greencore and Sainsbury's. So this is already published. There's a document, it's an extended case study come guide showing exactly the steps the team took and sharing Greencore's top tips with anyone else who wants to try and replicate that sort of success. So coming to the final 5 of our 555 approach, and this relates to the 5 stages of RAP's cunningly entitled WASTE methodology. It's a short, straightforward problem-solving discipline. It's based on lean and continuous improvement techniques to help prevent and reduce waste within a company's operations, and it doesn't contain any Japanese terminology. So if you're looking for something that's really easy for people to get their heads around and get action going quickly, this is a great tool to use. Our colleagues working with the Product Sustainability Forum have also produced a tool that takes a wider scope. And this is RAP's Whole Chain Resource Efficiency Toolkit. And it expands the WASTE problem-solving approach, but across the entire product value chain, from farm to fork. It also focuses in waste in all its forms, not just food and packaging, but also product and materials waste, water, energy, time, space, the whole shebang. It includes guidance on how to get the necessary members of a supply chain to collaborate to make the approach effective. Excuse me. This more holistic approach to resource inputs and extending along the whole food chain is going to be core to our work under Quartile 2025. So you can see the huge benefits on offer by taking steps to map waste, cost it properly, and target the hotspots, with supply chain collaboration and employee engagement being key to success. I've covered a lot very quickly, but the Dairy Digest covers all of this and provides the links to all the detailed guidance and tools that I've mentioned, plus lots more. Now, with luck, we've got, yes, so I'm told we do have Patrick Leane from FareShare is on the line. So I'm going to hand over to him now, and Pat's going to give us some more insight into redistribution.
Good morning, Philippa. Good morning, everybody. As Philippa said, I'm Pat Leane. I work at a charity called FareShare. that looks at redistributing food surplus to vulnerable and socially isolated people in this country. So I'm going to take a little bit of time just to talk, one, about redistribution in general and why that's important, and then specifically just to tell you a little bit more about FareShare. I'll try to rattle through quite quickly, and then if you've got any questions, we can pick it up at the end. So, Philip, can everyone hear me? Is that okay? Hello? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you fine. Carry on.
Right, okay, great, thank you. Okay, so if you could just move on to the second slide, please. So, why is redistribution important? Well, there's been an awful lot of great work that's been done to move food waste away from landfill, but I think the environment has really changed. And you know, if you look at it either from a consumer perspective, from a media perspective, or indeed now from a political perspective, you know, the mood has changed, and I think there really is a shift now for people expecting us that all food which is fit for human consumption is actually consumed. And that's true whether you look at it on a global or a UK level, or indeed whether you look at it through an environmental lens or through a social lens. Massive growth in world population, massive demands on our resources, and just a real need to actually be able to feed the world over the coming years. If you move on to the next slide. Specifically to FareShare, I mean, if you look at it within the UK, the Roundtree Foundation would say that there are actually nearly 14 million people in the UK living in relative poverty and 5.8 million people living in deep poverty. So, you know, this is still a really, really critical issue. If you just go down another slide, please, Philippa. And then if you look at dairy specifically, I mean, quite often in the discussions we have, you know, people say, well, I don't really have any in my business, and you know, when you talk about it, say, well, it's 0.1%, 0.2%, 0.3%. When you actually start to look at categories like dairy, there's such enormous categories that actually can be transformational within the people who need it in the country. And again, if you look at dairy production, when you look at it from an environmental footprint perspective, again, the environmental footprint means that it's a key category that from an environmental perspective, we need to make sure that the food that we're producing is being used by humans. You go down another slide, Philippa. So I think at FareShare we'd say that redistribution really is a critical part of the overall standard partnership model. And that we need to, while there's been great work that's been done in actually moving food away from landfill, that actually our ambition now needs to say that food that cannot be sold and is fit to feed people absolutely should be going to people to feed them. Again, you know, I've made the point that really holds whether you look at it through an environmental perspective or through a social perspective. Down to the next slide. So what does FareShare do? So FareShare works with retailers and manufacturers and really anybody who has a food surplus to redistribute that surplus and to get it to the charities that need it. Last year, we distributed 8,000 tonnes of food, and that's doubled over the past 2 years. And again, I think that really just starts to demonstrate how this area really is starting to see exponential growth. I think over the next 2 years, if we only doubled it again, we'd be quite disappointed. You know, some of the numbers we talk about are that we believe there's probably up to 100,000 tonnes of usable food that we could distribute through our network. And how do we use that? Well, we distribute to nearly 2,000 charities now, and those charities last year will have provided nearly 15 million meals for socially isolated and vulnerable people. So again, a really important area. And in doing that, the average charity we're working with will have saved nearly £13,000, and that's money that they can then divert to the core areas of social provision that they actually work with. So, why is the meal production or the meal provision side of it so important? Well, I'll probably bring this to life with an example. We work with Deptford Drug Rehabilitation Project. And the Deptford Drug Rehabilitation Project has seen a 40% growth in the number of people that are coming to them over the past year. And the reason for that is that through the donations we're getting, we're actually bringing some really, really good food to them. And word gets out on the street, and then people actually then start to come in there for their meals. By doing that, because they've got the social support around them, then that actually is a really important football driver for getting people in touch with the help they need. The importance of that is that you're then actually into an area of being able to prevent people's lives from kind of really falling apart before they do. So again, when you get into these areas of social care, the idea of actually having a meal as a core part of actually allowing people to start to get their lives back together is really, really important. So I guess that's a bit of a whistle-stop tour. Sorry, Philippa, we should be on the final slide now, the summary slide. So really, in summary, I mean, the standard partnership model will develop a common language and common practices for redistribution. But if you look at it, you know, kind of actually saying that we're redistributing food, we have actually now got to move this whole game forward and really move ourselves to a place where actually our ambition is that either from an environmental or from a social perspective, that we've got to make sure that that food is going to the people who need it and is being used to feed people. And I think, you know, FareShare presents a really practical and valuable solution to this. We're able to take the waste from the industry and both directly and indirectly get it to the people who really do value it, and it really does change lives. That's really a bit of a whistle-stop tour of redistribution and of FareShare. I'm not sure in this format whether we can take questions, Philippa.
We're having a Q&A session at the end, but if anyone would like to email in any questions through the Q&A box, then I'm not sure how long Pat can stay on the line, but we can certainly get questions over to him if he does have to head off. So if anybody would like to send anything in. Nothing at the moment, but we'll let you know how that goes.
I have got a head off, but my contact details are there if anybody wants to find out a little bit more. Lovely.
Thank you very much for joining us this morning. That's great.
Thank you. Have a good morning.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay. So now we've covered reducing waste in the supply chain. So I'm now going to hand back to Sue, who will discuss the ways to help consumers reduce waste in our homes.
Okay, so thank you very much to Philippa and Patrick. And now we're going to take a quick look at consumer food waste prevention, looking at some facts and figures, highlighting opportunities for action, plus also showing you where you can find useful information that can help you and your business to take action. So just starting off like Philippa did with a question. In the UK, we waste around 15 million tonnes of food each year. So how much of this comes from our homes? Is it A, 2 million tonnes, B, 7 million tonnes, or C, 14 million tonnes? And just while you have a think about that, I just wanted to let you know the 15 million tonnes of food waste that we create would fill 120 million rubbish trucks. And if they were put bumper to bumper, they would reach from London to Singapore. So the answer to the question is actually 7 million tonnes of that 15 million tonnes comes from our homes, and that would actually fill Wembley Stadium to the brim 9 times over. So this slide here shows that breakdown of the 15 million tonnes, and you can see that at 7 million tonnes, household food waste is the single largest contributor, which might be surprising to some people. You might also ask whether consumers are actually bothered about food waste, and I'm pleased to say that they are. This slide is taken from the FSA biannual Public Attitudes Tracker report, which is actually available on the food.gov.uk website, and these results are from May 2015. And this shows that when people were asked about concerns over wider food issues, food waste ranked as number 2 and is in fact normally in the top 4. But this time round, it actually even ranked above the price of food, which again is surprising. So research shows that consumers are not only concerned about food waste, but they also expect and want the industry to help them to reduce food waste in their homes. So going back to the 7 million tonnes, we actually split this down into 3 categories. Unavoidable, so for example, banana skins, bones and eggshells, so even we wouldn't suggest that people eat those. Possibly avoidable, so things like potato and apple peelings and crusts of bread. And then avoidable, so this is food that was edible at some point before it was thrown away. And as you would expect, our main focus is actually avoidable household food waste. So the 4.2 million tonnes of avoidable food waste in our homes is worth 12.5 billion to consumers on an annual basis. And there are 2 main reasons given for this waste. They are not used in time, costing 5.6 billion, and cooked, prepared and served too much, costing 4.1 billion, accounting for 9.7 billion of the 12.5 between them. So these top 2 reasons are where we focus our efforts and recommend that you do as well. So looking at that avoidable household food waste, by weight, you can see here that dairy and egg products at 10% make a significant contribution. And looking at the top 10 wasted foods, you can see that milk is number 3. So hopefully you can see why the dairy category is a priority for us. So just looking at a few more facts and figures, every day in our UK homes, we throw away the equivalent to approximately 5.9 million glasses of milk, 1.2 million yogurts, 3.3 million packs of cheese, and 1.1 million eggs. So I hope you'll agree that this really brings the point home when presented in this way. So thinking back to the reasons that we are wasting food, this table, taken from our Household Food Waste Report published in 2013 that uses 2012 data, shows that not used in time is a significant reason for waste in the dairy category. So just a few more facts and figures. A total of 480,000 tonnes of dairy and egg waste was disposed of in the UK in 2012, and almost all of that was avoidable, so 420,000 tonnes, at a cost of 780 million. The majority of the waste by weight was milk, 290,000 tonnes, or 60% of the total, all of which was avoidable and cost 290 million. The avoidable fractions of cheese waste weighed 34,000 tonnes, so 8% of the total, but in terms of cost, 230 million, so 29% of the total cost, and that's due to the higher price of cheese. And then eggshells, which are classified as unavoidable, accounted for around 3/4 of the total egg waste. So 2/3 of the total of dairy and eggs that were disposed of were not used in time, and this reflects the relatively short shelf life of these food types. Milk has a different profile from the other foods in the category, with a lower proportion of not used in time, so around 55%, and around 20% left over after either preparation or serving, and a further 15% is related to personal preference. So this table here shows that in terms of the 21% reduction of avoidable food waste seen between 2007 and 2012, that dairy and eggs were one of the main 5 categories contributing to that reduction, with a contribution of around 100,000 tonnes and a reduction of 18% within the category. Excuse me, but nevertheless, there is still action to be taken. So moving on to the action that you can take to help to tackle food waste. If you don't remember anything else about consumer food waste after this webinar, then please remember that you can download this interactive PDF, which takes you through the actions that you and your business can take to have an impact and to help prevent food waste in our homes. So we use and recommend a 2-tier approach. This is consumer engagement, which is mainly our Love Food, Hate Waste campaign, which works to raise awareness in consumers and also encourage behaviour change, which would include things like in-store and online activity as well. So changing the retail environment is the second part of the approach, and this is about enabling consumer behaviour change. So what does changing the retail environment mean? Well, it's about making changes to labelling, products and packaging that can help consumers to waste less food. And you'll find more information about our labelling recommendations in the Concept to Consumer PDF that we've just talked about. So how do these changes help? Well, essentially they make it easier for consumers to buy the right amount of food, store it correctly and use what they've bought before they have to throw it away. And the behaviours that we're trying to influence are all about planning, understanding dates, storing food, making the best use of the freezer, understanding the role of packaging, getting portion sizes right, and also using up leftovers if you have them. And the activity of our Love Food, Hate Waste campaign is designed to do this. And we also ask that you think about how you can do the same with your products and also your communication channels. So something else that we'd like you to consider is the role of packaging in consumer food waste prevention. And research from a report that we published in March 2013 shows us that there is a demand for better on-pack guidance about storage, and the majority of consumers said that they would use it if they knew it was there and would help them. Consumer confidence is high around storing food but can be misplaced, so they're not always right. And many consumers don't recognise that packaging can protect food in the home, although they do recognise it can protect food from the factory to the store and the store to their homes. And then finally, packaging innovations that were rated most useful to consumers were reclosable packs, packaging that makes the product last longer, and also split packs. So essentially what we're looking for is a consistent message to consumers that will encourage and enable behaviour change. And what we believe to be particularly important for the dairy category is the use of a single date code to avoid consumer confusion, making a choice between a use by and a best before date, and where possible move to a best before date. Let people know that your products are suitable for freezing, as many don't realise that milk and some cheeses are suitable for freezing. And then finally, using packaging design and innovation to help consumers. So for example, reclosable packs and looking at pack sizes. So in terms of action that's already been taken, we're pleased to say that we've seen the removal of display until dates and a move to single date codes, which is great. We've also seen some cheeses and yogurts move to a best before date where possible. And of course, we've all seen the reclosable packs for cheese, which are now a familiar sight on our shelves. I just wanted to draw your attention to some hints and tips on freezing that are included in our Love Food, Hate Waste A to Z of hints and tips. So you can see here information on yogurts, cheese and milk. So in terms of yogurts, you could put them into ice-lolly molds and freeze them. Cheese can be grated and frozen, and also milk can be frozen as well. So we want to encourage you to use our hints and tips where you can. We'd really like to see the Love Food, Hate Waste logo and website details with those hints and tips on people's packaging, although we do realise that the packaging in this category, more often than not, has less space available than the fresh produce category that we can see here on the slide. Also on this slide are some useful links that can take you to the Get Involved page on the Love Food, Hate Waste website, which will tell you what you can do to support Love Food, Hate Waste. So briefly, in terms of research and evidence, we have our main household food waste report that was published in 2013, and we also have two reports which come from further analysis of the data, our product report and our people report, all of which can be helpful to you in shaping your actions. We have a product report that was published in June 2014, and this includes information like the percentages of purchases wasted in the home, the sizes of individual instances of waste, detailed reasons for disposal, proportion of packs wasted, whether items were whole or unopened, and also information on disposal on meal occasion and days of the week. And then the people report, published in October 2014, looks at the influence of household size, age, busy lives, healthy eating and freshness, and also fussy eating and the presence of children on household food waste. So just a couple of slides to give you a flavour of the type of information that you can find in the product report. 12% of all food and drink waste was disposed of in its original packaging, and where food was thrown away in its original packaging, 43% contained more than 75% of the original contents, with dairy and eggs being a large proportion of this at 13%. Also, you can see that fresh vegetables and salad waste comprised the largest fraction at 19%, and that category is followed by dairy and egg waste at 13%. So it's worth noting that half of all of the yoghurt waste was thrown away in unopened packaging. So for food not used in times, date labels were cited in a third of those disposal decisions, and 2/3 of decisions were for other reasons, so primarily food going off. The products most often disposed of because they'd gone past their date were dairy and eggs, mainly yoghurt and yoghurt drinks and eggs, followed by drinks. And then other reasons, such as looking or smelling off, were mainly associated with fresh fruit and vegetables, but also bakery and dairy, which is mainly milk. This slide further illustrates the point that showing that dairy and eggs make up 10% of the occasions when date labels are not cited, and 19% of the occasions when date labels are cited as a reason for disposal. So the product level report also has product level analysis, and this includes milk, cheese and yoghurt. And these products are selected because they're indicative of their broader food category, and the products chosen for the product level analysis represent many of the products that contribute substantially to waste levels in the home, so about 40%. So to give you some examples, this slide shows the percentage of yoghurt waste by the presence of packaging. So 78% of yogurts, packaged yogurts wasted by weight was in packs which were more than 75% full, which is a much higher proportion than that for all food and drink waste, which is 43%. And then this slide looks at reasons for disposal of yoghurt, showing that on 70% of occasions for not used in time, the date label was cited. So moving on to product life, our recent work has shown us that this could be a real opportunity to help consumers to reduce food waste. So from a consumer point of view, not used in time is the #1 reason for wasting food. And the research that we published earlier in the year indicates there are a number of opportunities for action around challenging food safety and quality buffers that are already in place, and identifying supply chain improvements that can help to increase the life that's made available to consumers. So obviously all without compromising food safety. And we will be publishing some guidance in both of these areas in a few weeks' time. I just also wanted to draw your attention to our milk model, which is a mathematical model that simulates the effect of increasing the shelf life of milk on household food waste, and it shows that even a few days can make quite a difference. So just making you aware that we have a household food waste resource listing, which includes links to all of our research and evidence and is grouped into useful headings. And the link is on the slide, and you will see that you can find the milk model in here as well. So finally, just to highlight that later in the year we'll be publishing our 2015 retail survey, and this will update the last one that was done in 2011, which looks at all of the changes to products packaging and labelling that I've been talking about, giving us a view of how the industry has moved forward in terms of implementing these recommended changes. And we do have a couple of case studies coming out that involve work on fresh fruit, looking at the use of thermochromic inks for on-pack guidance, and also the use of packaging technology to extend product life. And the learnings from this work can also be applicable to the dairy category. And of course, you will be able to access these through the digest and also the resource listings. So just in summary, considering both supply chain and consumer food waste prevention, why would you take action? Hopefully you will have already seen and got a sense of that from what you've seen so far. So there's potential to cut costs within your business. In our work, we've seen on average a waste reduction potential of £1 million for a manufacturing site. Reducing food waste is important to your customers, whether they be retail customers or consumers. And then minimising waste and extending life through supply chain improvements can impact product availability in store and lead to increased sales. You can make your supply chain more resilient. You can also reduce your environmental impact, so preventing 1 tonne of food waste prevents 5 tonnes of carbon dioxide equivalent emissions. And then finally, working on food waste prevention can help you to ensure that your business complies with the waste hierarchy, which is a legal requirement. So if you were to make a start today, we would suggest that you look at from a supply chain point of view, using the 5-5-5 approach that Philippa described earlier. Look at implementing an employee engagement campaign using our Your Workplace Without Waste materials, and also consider redistribution of food that we've heard about today. And from a consumer point of view, get involved with the Love Food Waste campaign, look at your date labelling, look at on-pack guidance, and also consider the role of packaging. And then just a quick reminder about our digest, which will direct you to all the information that you've seen in our presentation today, both from a supply chain point of view and a consumer point of view. So that concludes our presentations for this session. And now we're just going to do a very quick question and answer session. So thank you to those who have sent questions in. I'm just going to hand over to Philippa.
Hi, yes, we've had a question come in asking about all the information we've been talking about this morning and who can access it. So, yeah, I do need to make clear that although all this material has been developed under the Courtauld 3 programme, it's not restricted access only for those who are signed up to the programme. The materials we produce out of it are for anyone in the food and drink sector to use, to send it on to your suppliers, get your customers involved. It's all absolutely freely available from the website, and the digest is your key tool in all of that to give you the links to everything you need. And we're going to be regularly updating the digest. So it's a downloadable PDF, but do always check on the website to see if there's a new version, and you'll get to see all our new stuff coming out.
Okay, so we have a question here which is asking whether the 7 million tonnes of household food waste is whether it's increasing or whether it's decreased over the last few years. So pleased to say that household food waste has decreased over the last few years. So since RAP's been working in this area and measuring it, between 2007 and 2012, avoidable household food waste has reduced by 21%. And if you remember those 9 Wembley stadiums that I talked about that filled, that means that there's been a reduction of 1 of those Wembley stadiums over that time span. So yes, it has decreased over the last few years. And then I have another question here, which is asking where people can find the A to Z of tips that I mentioned. So that's actually on the Love Food Hate Waste website, so you can find that there. Okay, so we haven't got any more questions at the moment, so that we'll sort of wrap up the question and answer session there. So just quickly, before we go, just a reminder about a few items that will be coming soon. We have the Food Waste Prevention Digests, the Packaging Optimisation Digest that Philippa talked about. We have Product Life Guidance, and then also obviously we have the other webinars in this series, and you can request information or register for these using the workshop's email address that's on the slide. So I'm just going to hand over to Helen now just to close the session.
So finally, just to say thank you for attending our webinar today, and we hope you found that it was an interesting overview of food waste prevention for the dairy sector. As I said at the beginning of the session, we have recorded this webinar and we will be publishing it on the RAP website along with the other webinars that are in this series. We'll send you a link to this presentation and the slides following the session, and we really encourage you to share the webinar with any of your colleagues who you think may benefit from hearing it. A couple of further questions have come in, so thank you for those, and we'll get back to you individually. We'd also welcome any further questions through our email address, which is foodspecialist@rap.org.uk. And again, thank you to Patrick for joining us, and if you have any queries for him, we can also forward them to him. So thanks again. Goodbye.